Donald Trump called April 2nd Liberation Day, the day set for reciprocal tariffs to take effect. Most tariffs on goods imported into the United States increased to 25%, with the exception of China and energy from Canada capped at 10%. Well, joining us with more about the effect of tariffs on relations with Canada is host of the Grey Matter podcast, Canadian attorney and political commentator Leighton Grey. Leighton, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said he'll inflict as much pain as possible on America for these tariffs. So what do you think? What can he do in response?
Well, the answer is very little. I mean, the numbers don't lie. America only does about 1% of its trade with Canada, and only about 24% of America's GDP is dependent upon trade globally. Canada, on the other hand, is highly dependent on trade with the U.S. In fact, about 3/4 of our trade is with the U.S. So actually, Mr. Ford is he's blovinating as is sort of his habit, unfortunately. Really, there's nothing that Canada can do by way of reciprocal tariffs that are going to impact the United States very much. The people who are really going to be hurt by all of this are the end consumers, because as people should understand, a tariff is another word for tax. And although governments, whether it's the U.S. government or the Canadian government, may take in more money due to tariffs, all that money is going to come from consumers. So when you go out to buy your Toyota or your Hyundai or some vehicle that's being imported into the United States is going to cost 25% more, you can be sure that all that cost is going to be passed on to the consumer. And that's the real problem with these tariffs.
Well, mostly the 25% tariffs will hurt Canadian cars coming into the United States. And Ford said the tariff increase could annihilate Ontario's auto industry. But aren't many of the vehicles excluded from the 25% tariff if they include U.S. parts?
Well, this is an interesting thing that you bring up, and that is it's not clear where the vehicles are actually made. And some of the parts are made in the United States, some are made in Canada, some are made in Mexico. The Canadian auto industry, such as it is really a finishing place. That is, the vehicles are assembled in Canada ultimately, and then they're shipped to the United States. It's not a situation where the vehicles are being totally assembled and made in Canada. So these are sort of some of the nuances in the tariffs that are really hard to figure out, and that have many people, even within the Trump administration, scratching their heads. The real question is, I guess there's two. Number one, how serious is Trump about tariffs? I think thus far we have to say pretty serious. And secondly, what is the real purpose that he's trying to serve through the tariffs, especially in relation to Canada? I'm not convinced that Donald Trump is using tariffs to actually get a trade advantage in relation to Canada. The U.S. already has a really great trade deal with Canada, despite what Mr. Trump says. And so I think that actually there's a deeper purpose behind what Mr. Trump is doing with tariffs, at least in relation to Canada.
Well, what is that then, Leighton? What is he really after? Does he just want open borders? And I'm not talking about physical borders, but economic ones?
Well, I think he's told us. If you go back to some of his earlier tweets, I think his deep concern, when you drill down, is military security of the continent. People should understand, although it doesn't get publicized very much, that the Russians have 30 nuclear-powered icebreakers active in the Canadian Arctic, and they have a massive carrier up there, battleship up there. That is nuclear powered. Canada only has a couple of broken down diesel ships, and we have an ice station up there that has been long since abandoned. And so there really isn't much defense going on of that part of the continent. And so I actually think what Donald Trump is signaling is something that I've been talking about for a while, and that is, unfortunately, the domestic politics of Canada are very much in the globalist vein. This is something that the Trump administration is very much opposed to. And I think the way that Canada is being governed poses a geopolitical threat to the safety and security of the United States. Don't forget, one of the people who ran for prime minister recently, ran for the leadership of the Liberal Party against Mr. Carney, who only 7% of Canadians know who he is Chrystia Freeland. And during the leadership debates, she actually said that if she became our prime minister, she would form military alliances with European nuclear powers and have them put nukes on the ground along the 49th parallel and point them due south. So I think what Donald Trump is mostly concerned about, and he should rightly be concerned about, is what's going on in Canada. How does it impact the safety and security of the United States and of Americans and Canadians for that matter? And as a Canadian, I can tell you, I'm actually grateful for the interest that Donald Trump is taking in Canada and in Canadians, because it surpasses anything that any Canadian politician has done in the last 10 years.
Okay, we'll wait and see how all this plays out. I know you have an election coming up on April 28th. That's Prime Minister Carney called that early. We'll see how that, what Canadians think about that and which route they choose. So, Leighton Grey of the Grey Matter podcast, thank you for sharing your insights. We appreciate you.
That's been my privilege. Thank you.